Welcome back to Division I Rejects. This is episode 156. I'm Kobe Manzo. I was going to try and come up with an April Fool's joke, but I've seen enough of them already. I've gotten got already this morning on the D1 Rejects account. You may have caught it. You may have not. We will cover some of the best of the April Fool's shenanigans here later on in the podcast. It'll be just me tonight, but I am joined by not one, but two awesome guests here shortly. That's head coach down at Lock Haven of the Bald Eagles, not just the Eagles. Get that shit right. Dan Mulrooney, he's joined by his first-team All-American running back, Chris Collier, down there, and those two have put together something special down in central Pennsylvania, a team that, I'll give you the cliff notes, not a winning season since 1981 for the Bald Eagles. They were a few plays away last year from flipping the script on that and having their first winning season since, but they've got another chance at it this year. A lot of improvement down there at Lock Haven. Excited to talk with Coach Mulrooney, someone I've been trying to get on the pod for a while. Really enjoyed that conversation. Also, having two guests on in the same call at the same time could be the move. Could be a cool dynamic. Let me know what you think of it. I really appreciated those guys in their time. Otherwise, after we talk to Dan and to Chris, we've got some D2 pro prospects. I got 5 more guys today that I think are certainly worth taking a look. So we'll cut on the tape, talk about all the accolades, all the awards, maybe some of the knocks on these guys and trying to make it to the next level. I'll give you at least, I never claimed to be an expert analyst when it comes to like draft prospects, but what I can do is give these guys at least a little bit of a platform, throw the tape on and just talk about them, talk them up and talk good about them. So we'll talk about those guys and we'll finish with the best of the April Fool's jokes and the one that I may have got and they tricked me. I woke up this morning and I wake up and I scroll, I think as many people do, and for better or for worse, and my guard was not up at all, and that's just not something I thought about. So it is what it is. Probably one of the worst days to be on the internet in general. But as always, if you're not already, you can watch this episode on YouTube. If you are, hello, don't forget to subscribe. Use the timestamps, the video chapters on whatever platform you're on. Fast forward to any part of the conversation. Follow us on the socials. Do not forget to subscribe, like I said. But we really appreciate y'all. And we're going to kind of get to a point here where we've got a lot of these draft prospects and all those things. If you got any ideas for some off-season content you'd like to see, let us know. Otherwise, don't worry. Got a lot of stuff cooking up here, so we'll certainly be, still coming with the content. But we'll get into that conversation with Coach Mulrooney and running back Chris Collier. All right, not often do we have the pleasure of doing this, but 2 guests that I'm excited about joining the show tonight. One of them, the man that has this small town in central Pennsylvania locked in to a football team that, let's be honest, hasn't had this much excitement in potentially either of our lifetimes. It's Coach Dan Mulrooney. Coach, he's joined by one of the big pieces of that turnaround, his All-American running back, Chris Collier. What's going on, fellas? Got both of you in here.
Man. Appreciate you having us. Do a great thing for D2 football and highlighting athletes and highlighting coaches and programs. And I've been following your podcast for a while, so I'm honored to be on. And honestly, to have my guy next to me, Chris Collier, is just a great experience. So grateful and humbled to be here.
Hell yeah, man. This was just, time in the making, and this is something that was going to happen. Didn't know when. It was going to happen eventually. And when you said that, you want to have Chris on your 2, why not? Let's just do them both at the same time. 2 guys that I'm really excited to talk to, and your guys' journey that we'll get to maybe in a little bit. But starting with you, Coach, just talking about the program, where we're at right now as far as this stage of the game, you put together pretty substantial signing class, which definitely varies level to level. You've got experience at a D3 squad where those signing classes tend to be really large, trying to fill beds and get people into those schools. Now, at this level, a lot of talented freshmen, but also a host of some transfers coming in this year, a good amount of them being grad transfers. Talk about this this signing class and that balance between the two of them, obviously utilizing that portal and also trying to get in guys you can develop for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, loaded question here, but I mean, honestly, yeah. Been here 2 years now and just seen immense growth, right? And that you've seen a program, like you said, like hasn't been on the radar for a long time. And honestly, we came in with our hair on fire and, we like to do hard things with good people, right? And that's kind of my MO as a coach took over a D3 team that was struggling, immensely and turned that into a playoff team, NCAA team, and got hired here to do the same thing. And honestly, we keep the main thing. I think recruiting is the biggest, weapon for us as a staff, being a younger staff and being attractive to recruits. And honestly, the way college football is changing, you have to change too and adapt. And I think, bringing in a mixture of freshmen and transfers gets you a little ready, a little quicker. And I think Chris was testament of that kind of balance. But
Yep.
as good as transfers are, you have to bring in a strong freshman class too, because you want the program to last, right? You want the program to have continuity into the future. And I think the last 2 years we brought in a good mixture to get us going a little bit with transfers, but also bring in some good freshmen, local players, really good talented kids from good programs to kind of catapult us. So yeah, excited, man. 2 years here, and had our best season in 43 years. We signed a great class again, and just super proud of the university, the community, and everyone rallying behind a young coach and a young staff that really cares about the program and its development.
And we can take a second too and talk about, this might simultaneously be one of the most simple yet one of the coolest little presser backdrops that we've had on the show so far. The big locked in behind you, just surrounded by smaller versions of it, is awesome. Is this your office? Where is this at?
Yeah, this is my office. This is
that's awesome.
Marketing is a thing that we do a lot of, and obviously trying to spread our brand and spread our awareness to recruits. And we really have spread our brand. I think like social media is a big tool now, right? You can click a button and you can share it from all across the world, worldwide. And honestly, we went from no followers to maybe one of the most in D2. So we're getting there. We're exciting. So we're happy about that.
That's big. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about, obviously, like we talked about, utilizing the portal, also getting those guys you can develop. You touched on it well there. And I know personally, like you touched on that social media, that promotional marketing aspect. That's what I do up here at Northern Michigan for all of our athletic teams. And we do all those official visit photo shoots and all the flashy, those kind of deals. I know personally, when you've got grad transfers coming in, that photo shoot is so much different than the 17 and 18-year-olds that are coming in. You know what I mean? You've got a dude here that is, especially now with COVID, he could be 22, 23, 24 years old, come in, get 1-2 photos, maybe treating it like a LinkedIn profile shoot versus some of these high schoolers that come in and I always love, they get the phone set up in the corner and got to go live on Instagram before we start the shoot. Hey, I am all for high schoolers, totally enjoying it. I'm not trying to dig, but talk about the differences in approaching both those guys. I'm sure the recruiting process for dudes that, like I said, 17, 18 versus 22, 23 years old, that has to be a lot different.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. That was a great segue. I think when I recruit transfers, and Chris is one of them, he'll tell you, we recruit them. I know they can play, right? So we recruit them as partners. And really what I look at it is, from a head coach standpoint, is I want a partner more than I want a player. And when you treat them maturely and you're honest with them, you lay it all out there in terms of, I told Chris straight up, I said, do you want to be really sore on Sunday? And he goes, yeah, I do. And I'm like, all right, well, then come here because I'm going to give you the ball back.
That's awesome.
But you're honest with them and you give them a plan and you treat them a little more maturely. And we don't really take photo shoots with our transfers too much unless they want to.
Yep.
But really, it's a mature conversation. And say, listen, come here for a year, come here for 2 years, play, be sore on Sundays, get some film. Because the best way to, whatever their dreams or aspirations are, they need film to continue playing.
Yep.
And have a really good experience around great people. I mean, it's simple as that. We show them campus, but every campus is the same, right? We have libraries, we have locker rooms, and we have stadiums, and whether it's D2, D3, D1. I think the hardest thing for D1 transfers down to D2 is they have to sacrifice something, right? They have to go from a shiny locker to maybe not so shiny, or you go from a crazy glass building to maybe a brick building. But what you get in the forefront is you get the opportunity, right? Yeah. You get the opportunity to play and maybe not deal with politics as much, and just the game you love. It simplifies a little bit and gives them another chance. And I know Chris was more of a late bloomer, and honestly, he got a chance and he excelled. And I think that happened a lot with our guys. And that's what got me excited about recruiting transfers, because there's a negative thing, right? Old school, it's like, don't recruit transfers.
Absolutely.
With them, right? You think you're getting a Corvette and the sunroof don't work, right? Well, Chris is the opposite, right? And if you do your homework and you know they're good character kids and they're going to come in, their energy is contagious in the locker room, right? When you why is a transfers in for one reason, that's to play, right? So that energy to play is awesome because all they want to do is practice, lift, train, and being around young players, they gravitate towards that. So to me, the right balance and number of transfers is only you're adding more leadership to the room rather than more cancers to the room. And you have to be careful with that balance. There's no question. But when you get guys like Chris and you get guys like Cody and Danny Sanchez and Darren and Arm and all these guys we brought in, it's all been leadership based. So, Chris is a testament to that.
I like that perspective a lot. And maybe that's one that I think a good amount of coaches share, but not one that you're going to see when you're scrolling through Twitter, Instagram, whatever, because you're only going to see the people that are radically on one side or the other, right? And there's not you talk about that balance, and that's incredibly important. And don't worry, we'll get to the bell cow conversation later, because 30 carries on a Saturday afternoon will do that to a young man. But Chris, man, as a guy that obviously has professional aspirations, we'll talk about that soon enough, you're making that sacrifice, like Coach said, going down a level and going to a program, not only that has some serious historical struggles when it comes to winning football games. I know this man's pitch to you had to have been a good one, but even outside of that, what was it about Lock Haven that made it the right fit in your eyes for your last year?
In my eyes, I mean, once I got on campus, it's funny, I kind of felt like this peace, like this serenity, like, yo, this feels like home. It was before I even talked to Coach Moore. I didn't even talk to him yet.
Okay.
But it was really just the atmosphere that was around the campus. Like, Coach and the coaching staff has a very contagious, young, bright, positive energy about all of them. And once I got there, I got to the meeting, I mean, it was just a no-brainer at that point. I knew I was going there. I didn't tell them off rip because I wanted to still play the hard-to-get game, but I knew off rip once I got on campus, I knew that was where I was going.
That's interesting, man. I know a lot of people, myself included, when you're going through that recruiting process, a lot of people don't get that feeling. You go and visit these spots, and a lot of times you step foot on campus, and I, for one, I was expecting that. Eventually I'm going to step foot on campus, and you're going to get this overwhelming, just like, I don't know how the hell it's going to work, but you're going to be struck by lightning or fall in love or something. Exactly. Man, this will be this emotion that just overcomes you. But that never happened for me. It doesn't happen for a lot of people. I'm glad it happened for you, for the record. But, man, going back to you, Coach, your path to Lock Haven, you talked about being at the D3 level, having that experience of taking a program and performing that turnaround, bringing Anna Maria to their first tournament berth, right? That's something that is an amazing accomplishment in itself. Now you go over to Lock Haven. You mentioned it, the best program season in 40-some years. The last season with the winning record, 1981. That was a lot of record searching on my behalf. That is crazy. But what's even crazier is that 2 years into it, you've got this program at a spot that is going to break all those narratives and those historical struggles. You're just a few plays short of winning in that season closer, Edinburgh. And that one, while I'm sure maybe haunts you a little bit, talk about the process, that steps. I'm full of loaded questions today, but I'll give you the floor just to talk about that in your last 2 years, man, the journey to where we're at now, and still obviously a lot of, space to grow.
Yeah. So just bring it back on just me in general, like growing up, like Holy Cross High School in Connecticut, like first ever state championship. I was part of that team. Went to Boston College. We were one of the best, as a player there. We had our best season in 2007 that we've ever had at BC. Played with some great players, great teams. So I went to Stony Brook to cap my career. Our first 2 titles we won at Stony Brook. WPI was our best season ever. I was a defensive coordinator there. Anna Maria, never was a program that won. We turned it around in 4 years. And, I guess I'm a guy that likes really challenges and make them into opportunities. And I think that's the mindset, right? Like, you have the attitude, like you pick growing up, I always pick in basketball, you always pick the 5 worst kids and try to win with those kids. That was me. Always the competitiveness in me. Like, if I lose to you, I'm going to try to choke you out in checkers. Like, that's just who I am. I'm super competitive. I want that. I want to do something drastic and want to do something that, could make your name on it. Like, Chris came here because he wants to make a footprint in the program. And he shared that. He shared that with me. Like, I want to make a footprint in every program I go to and every place I step. I want to make a footprint. Yeah. And when kids share that vision, like in myself, we can go really far. What I learned in the Division III level was so much. And I knew that if you could win at Anna Maria, you could win anywhere, because that's a hard place to win. And I credit all D3 coaches, because that's a challenge now, right? Any coach that doesn't understand that's a real challenge. And going from Anna Maria to here, it's like we have everything compared, and the resources and what you have and how you can recruit scholarships and all. It's a lot easier. I'll tell you what, it's a lot more competitive, but it's fun. And realistically, our plan was simple. It was just, get a lot of kids that believe in our vision and want to make a footprint. And, I learned a lot from sitting in the chair the last 8 years being a head coach, who to recruit, who to hire. And as much as I failed at Anna Maria in the early years, those were all learning lessons for me early on to now walk into a program and do it earlier. Right. And
Yep.
obviously grateful, blessed. And it's really hard to win football games, especially in our league. I took this job and it was, you can never do this. And it's just fueled my fire, right? It's like fueled everyone's fire. It says you can't do something. It was like, wow, watch this. It was one of those things that was just so cool to do. And now we have expectations and we're going to keep rising and keep building. And, every place I've been, we've won a championship. So I'm going to continue to make this place rise and grow. And unfortunately, we were trying to get Chris another year. I know he wanted to come back and we were trying to find some COVID 17, 6 years.
A lot of guys have found it, man. We had a wide receiver up here who was 26 going on 27. He had ice bags on his knees like LeBron after a half of playing, man, every game. It was incredible.
I'll take you back, Chris, if you don't want to go to the Giants.
But no, I love that. And I think it was actually Dan Campbell that said that the most important thing that a head coach does is hire his staff. And when you go through that process, now you're a guy too that, if I'm not mistaken, has control over the defensive side of the ball. You're the play caller for the defense, right?
Right.
So
it's awesome. I love to coach, and that's my thing. And I think all head coaches become head coaches because they're good at being a coordinator on one side of the ball. So at this level, it's hard to just be a CEO.
And that's,
I have a great defensive staff, and I have great people I trust.
That's been interesting too, because like you said, at this level, I think it's very important because we've seen at some of the higher levels that position has become much more managerial, right? Especially when you talk about pro teams, but also that's trickled down to the college game as well. And you certainly are a man who likes a challenge. You're definitely the type of guy that would load up like an old NCAA football game and start the dynasty with like Idaho or Coastal maybe, or something along those lines, and just build up that squad to national contention, man. But let's talk about the year that you put together, Chris. 1,400 yards or so, some change. We talked about some of those days where you are the bell cow of this offense and you might touch the rock 30 times. And it feels like for a lot of the stretches, I didn't get to tune into too many of your guys' game, but putting on some of the film that I could find, this offense, and more importantly, the pace of this offense is determined by what you're doing with your legs, with your eyes, or even with your hands. Now, what about this year, and I guess what areas of your game, what did it do for your development? Obviously, getting that many touches, you have a bazillion chances to go out there and make plays. What did it do for your development as a player?
Well, it did a lot. It gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of reps, ability to read defenses a lot more clearly, a lot more time to look at film and focus on things that I could have did better or things I did do good and take that and apply that to the next game. It was just a lot of just in detail looking at what is there and what is not there, pretty much. And the way my running back coach, he was, since I was getting those 30 touches, obviously we'd be in the film room with all the other running backs, and I'd be the one getting clicked on and being criticized the whole time. But I was taking that and building myself. I wasn't taking it to heart. I was taking that, improving my game and writing it down and writing down notes and seeing what I could get better at.
I hear you. And then when coach throws out a term like a late bloomer, which we see in a lot of guys, especially, mid to late college, what about your game, maybe in your physicality, has changed from your year 1 or 2 to now at Lock Haven? What have you seen in yourself, maybe that looking back at some old plays, which I'm sure maybe you do every once in a while, that's changed, man?
It's really my size. I mean, my first year in college, I was like barely 180. And I was getting tossed around, flipped, switched, all that. And I got up to like about 205 when the season started. I was able to take more hits. I was able to get the ball more, and I was able to not feel the pain as much around carry 25. I was able to get to 30 with no problem. And trust me, at this stage, with COVID and everything, I'm obviously a year older. So the next day, like Coach was saying, he was going to wake up sore. And man, did I wake up sore every day. But I made sure to get in that training room and do what I can to get my body right for the next week.
Underappreciated aspect of a dude that you're going to take that beating on a Saturday, but how you approach that and recover from that. Because for people in other sports, basketball, baseball, I don't know, hockey plays series, that might seem, a week might seem like a long time to get your body into a right place and get your body and mind right. It's not. It goes by
It's not
so quickly
like
during
that.
the regular season. It's incredible. So the dudes that are able to do that are the ones that can stick around, right? You have that staying power. I know Coach Nystrom used to say it up here. I've heard it echoed across the country. Your best ability is your availability. The fact that you are available for your squad, I think, is the biggest part probably of your game. And that's not, it doesn't come down to any one piece of your style or your running attack. That's what it is. So that one might be better for Coach. Talk about his durability and, I guess, dependability, if we're just going to keep throwing those kind of words on Chris there, and why that was so important to you guys this year.
Yeah, I mean, just having him on the field is, everyone has to know where he was, right? And I think that's, I'm a defensive guy. So, like, if I was going against Chris, I'd put 11 in the box if I could to try to stop him.
That's good.
You see a lot. Obviously, we're still rebuilding, so we still had a lot of pieces there. We had good players, but a lot of people were keying on him, too. And it was, they knew he was getting the ball. I think in some games in the rain, I think the whole stadium knew.
9 in the box. 9 in the box, man.
So there was a lot of moments where, our running back coach and our offensive coordinator is saying, hey, get him out. He needs a blow. And I'm screaming at him on the other side. I'm like, he doesn't need a blow. He's fine. Keep him in. We need the first down. Chris is looking at me like, Coach, I might need a blow, but I trust you. I love it. It was a lot of me staring deeply into Chris's soul to say, keep going. Yeah. But no, we had other backs behind him that were really good players too. And it was just, at the end of the day, he had a great season. And honestly, whenever you have a great season, you thank the football gods for just allowing you to, stay healthy, right? It's such a hard game to stay healthy and not get any injuries the whole year long. And, to make him available the whole season, I'd always tell my running back coach and my coaches at the staff room, just get the horse to the race, right? Just we need him to play on Saturdays. And, when he's in the game on Saturdays, better things will happen for Lock Haven football. And our coaches did a great job of managing him and his reps. And just kudos to him. The kid's a workout warrior. Like he got the workout warrior of the week during the season. After every game, he's in there Sunday lifting full speed, never wanting to miss practice, never wanting to miss a rep. I mean, I had to slow him down. Like, Chris, go easy. Like, we need you for Saturday. And he just wants to play. He wants to lift. He wants to train. As you can tell, he's got the biceps and he's got the the bodybuilding. He cares about his body extremely. And I think because he cares about his nutrition and his body and things like that, it's undervalued, right? Like, we might not have the resources that maybe Penn State has in terms of nutritionists and,
for sure,
strength training and all that stuff. But when a person cares as much as Chris does, you stay healthy longer, right? And you get your sleep and get your nutrition, and you have to, or he wouldn't have lasted. So it's a kudos to him and his diet and his plan and really trusting himself.
Definitely. And for the record, I had to keep the long sleeves on, so I didn't get shown up tonight. I like to, look at least somewhat put together when I'm on my own show here, but we'll have an exception for tonight. And I agree, like, that's a big part of the game. And as someone who, since I stepped foot on campus, I've had 3 knee surgeries. And that's something that is a combination of, sometimes, you know what, it's just not on your side. Fortune, luck, whatever it is. But a lot of that stuff, now maybe not knees in particular, it becomes a weird joint, but a lot of that stuff is preventable when you take that right approach. And that's when you talk about the nutrition, the strength, and those aspects of the game. And I think for so long, you guys can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I think the mindset for in-season training, and I think this has changed in the last 5 to 10 years, but the mindset for in-season training for a long time was just to maintain and just to keep your body obviously moving and to keep your muscles engaged. But now I think we've found, is a very loose term, but I think now that we've found there are different ways to perform exercises that don't have to be loading a ton of weight onto a barbell or putting yourself in adverse situations inside of the weight room, where you can still target these muscle groups and still build strength and build muscle, albeit maybe at shorter increments than out of season when you have more time and effort and energy to put into the weight room. But I do think that's an area that we've improved on, and I'm excited for it because it just means better athletes and better products on the field. Now, even after a year where you earned some national recognition, All-American honors, you experienced that success on the field. What has the process and the challenge been like for you, Chris, now to get in front of the right eyes and showcase that on a setting and a stage that is going to get you those looks at the next level? Because obviously you know the challenge that's ahead of you.
Mhm. It's really just getting the opportunity, taking the small opportunities that I will have in the future, which I know I will have, and really just taking it and going with it. Taking Make sure to really take it in, know what I'm doing, know what the play is, know what the route is, whatever the circumstance may be, making sure I'm 100% keyed in and locked in on that particular situation.
Yeah. Taking advantage of some of those smaller opportunities. And I think if I'm picking it up right, like obviously you're not a guy that's going to get a draft or a combine invite or something where
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be at a Big 10, Big 12 pro day, those kind of deals, right? But
Yeah.
what you will have, and we'll talk about, is an opportunity to get in at a school like Temple, right? And go out there where
Yeah.
you know there's going to be eyes from some big time franchises and programs, and putting yourself on the same stage as somebody who spent the last year competing at a Power 5 kind of school or conference, that kind of deal. What was that experience like, aside from putting up what I would assume are some, you're really happy with the numbers that went up there just from an outsider's perspective? But I don't know you, man. What was that experience like? Talk to me.
I'm gonna be honest. It felt surreal, to be
Yeah.
honest. I was surprised I was even let in, funny enough. But after a while, I started to feel like I belonged once I started getting through the tests, like the vertical jump. I was like, I'm jumping with these guys. The bench press, I'm benching with these guys. The 40, I'm outrunning most of these guys. And I mean that in the most humblest way possible.
Mhm.
But it was like a reality check. It was like, Chris, you are just as good as an athlete as some of these guys. Believe in yourself, believe in what you could do, and it'll translate into the game on the field. And that day honestly gave me a confidence boost into what I could become. I'm not there yet. I know I have a lot more training and work to do, and I'm excited to do it. I'm a workhorse, like Coach said. I love working in the gym, working on my craft, and that's the main thing that I'm looking forward to and all that.
Absolutely. And I have to imagine, too, you show up to an event like that, and not that you don't have the utmost confidence in yourself. You have to, right? If you're going to go try and play at the next level, you have to just believe that you're that guy. But when you show up to that, even in the back of your head, for a dude that has that confidence, there has to be a little bit of that. You kind of mentioned like the imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Do I really belong here? Can I really match up with these guys on paper? What are the people, more importantly, with the hand timers and the notepads going to think? Do they think that I match up with these guys? Was there a bit of that in the beginning? And you talked about like how quickly did that go away?
Also, as soon as I got there, it's funny. One of the I don't know if I should say a team, but one of the scouts
There you go. Yeah.
already. I took off my shirt.
Yeah. Don't
and
get
he
me in
was
trouble
already
now. That's just, yeah.
he was already making comments about my physique in a funny but complimentary way, and I
Okay.
was like, okay. I mean, I guess I look good. You know, sometimes when you
Yep.
work out, you get that body dysmorphia, and you don't think you look big, but you, in reality, to some other
That's
people, you
real.
probably do. So that was one of them. And then when I got down to the vertical, I heard one of them whisper, one of the teams whisper, "Oh, he's about to jump high." And it was just little things that I was noticing and hearing that was giving me that boost. Like I belong here. I know I belong here. Let me just believe it and lock in on that.
Absolutely. Lock in. I know Coach is proud of that when he stuck that in there. I think. Yeah.
He's trained correctly.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's awesome. I guess the kind of the last piece for you, Coach, is just what have you learned through this process about getting your guys prepared, obviously, for that next level. Chris isn't the first. You won't be the last, and getting them right in front of the correct eyes at that level.
Yeah, it's like me and Chris talked about it, and more guys too. It's a stressful process. Coming from the Division II landscape, trying to make it to the NFL, make it to the CFL, make it to the UFL, whatever it may be, to give these kids a platform. A lot of it's about connections, right? And Chris knows that, right? It's getting them into schools, and the coaching world is small, right? And the scouting world is small, right? And it's all about connections and who you know, and man, pounding down doors, man, it's fighting for these kids. Chris is a first team All-American running back, and he's a hell of a player, and I know as much as he doesn't, might not think he belongs, I knew he belonged, and it was me knocking down doors to people I know, scouts I know. I know plenty of guys in the NFL, plenty of guys who I played with who are now GMs, I played with Ryan Pohl, GM of the Bears, GM, there's a million people that are connected that are a text message away. It's so cool. Right. And, it's like, I swear this guy's good, and then Chris was able to validate me, which is good.
That's got to feel good. Yep.
I mean, he showed up and right away, I knew it the whole time that he belonged, and it only took 10 seconds before there was 16 scouts just circling him, swarming him. This whole weekend, I've had 9 to 10 on Saturday morning, 10 different teams calling my cell phone, asking about character references for Chris and asking more and learning about him, very interested in him, bringing him to local days, mini camps. I mean, Chris has the world at his fingertips right now. And really what I told the scouts, and I'll tell you and I'll tell Chris, he's the best kid. He's humble and he has a chip on his shoulder coming from Division II. Doesn't have the resources that I'm sure a lot of others have right now. And that's kind of what I explained, the late bloomer thing this was really his first year getting a real full carry of kind of what college football is as a starting running back. And we went 11 straight games without a break. The PSAC's a tough league. And it's very comparable to FCS football in a way, in terms of the talent level. Chris has just as a good a shot as anyone. NFL is all about timing and what they're looking for. And Chris, with his, you bring in a kid like Chris into a mini camp, he's going to look the part. He's going to deliver. Chris is a kid that you put up against anyone, and he's going to make you look good. He's going to make himself look really good, really quickly. He proved that at Temple. I mean, he was over in Temple, and all of a sudden he's one of the best kids here, like really quickly.
That's
so
awesome.
I mean, it's just a matter of time before somebody gives him a shot.
Absolutely, man. Coach, Chris, I appreciate both of you. Excited to see. I'll be following along closely these next couple months. I know you'll end up somewhere. We're going to be following along with much interest. And, Coach, hopefully get you back on here in the future, man. A lot to come down there in Pennsylvania. I appreciate the both of you. Have a good night, fellas.
You too, man. Have a good one, Mr. Manzo.
All right, get locked in, man. Go Bald Eagles.
Hell yeah. I'll see you guys. All right. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Chris, for joining me tonight. Now we're going to transition over, stay on the D2 level, a lot of D2 ball tonight, but we are going to talk some small school prospects. We got, like I said in the opener, 5 guys tonight that I wanted to highlight that I think have a really good chance of making some waves at the next level, whether that is, we talked about it before, this doesn't mean they're getting drafted or they're even going to the NFL. This is playing professional ball, right? And whatever opportunity they get is going to be a great one. Let's start with a guy that we've actually had the pleasure of having on the show, and that's the man right here, Trey Vavel, and he's a guy that is a very multifaceted dude, and admittedly, I don't have a ton of tape on, but here's some of the pro day, training that he's kind of gone through, and just to see his face for those of you who remember that we had him on a while back, and like I said earlier, Trey's a guy that is very multidimensional. I'm going to show you exactly what that means. He's a defensive back for Minnesota State Mankato, but what you'll see from him in a little bit is that potentially his best attribute on the field is actually his kick return ability and what he does on special teams. Now, he did get out to a pro day over at Minnesota, I do believe. So here's a couple of flicks that he put out from the pro day, and couldn't find too much on the actual number from that experience, but seemed to be pretty high spirits after that one. Have to assume he showed up and showed out and put on a show for those guys and all of the scouts. But what I did want to take a look at, and something I alluded to, it's something we talk about with a lot of these small school products, is how do you get your foot in the door? And Trey is a guy that had a lot of big-time plays at Mankato, but he actually got his start over at Missouri Western before he transferred over to MSU, if you will. So they got a nice little compilation of some of his better returns put together here, and I wanted to flip these on for you guys because this is a dude that I had it written down a really great combination of point A to point B explosiveness as in terms of somebody who is a straight line runner. But what you'll see here is that combination is paired with what I would call a phone booth style quickness, where he's able to make moves and navigate in really confined small spaces. And that's something that translates to the defensive back position, I think, very well when you're trying to match up with someone. Here's more of the point A to point B. The dude can just outrun you, and this is going to be a chance for him to get into, whether it is a mini camp or some type of bigger NFL or CFL, UFL, whatever it is, those kind of opportunities, whatever that is for him. That kick return ability is going to be a very important one for Trey, and I'm excited to see what he does. He was a 3-time All-American, NSIC first teamer, special teams player of the year. The dude has a lot of the accolades to go with that, and we kind of talked about that explosive set and that skill set that he has. But when it comes to measurements, he has A decent build, yeah, about 6 foot, 170 pounds, so certainly could probably stand to put a little bit of weight on when you talk about that durability factor potentially, but also playing that defensive back, that like corner position, it's not something that I think is typically highlighted. I think the 6 foot number, is a lot more important. We've seen that trending in the last however many years of these teams trying to go out and get these real lengthy defensive backs that can cover a lot of ground, can make plays on the ball in the air, and really because they can match up with these bigger receivers. We've even talked about a couple out of D2 that have these massive frames. We'll talk about another one here shortly, and I think that's the reason we've seen a lot of these teams trending towards that, is that so these defensive backs literally can just match up with a lot of these receivers we've seen come out of college ball that have these, I mean, really they have professional builds coming straight out of college, and it's something that I don't think we've seen quite as often. Now, a guy that we can switch over
the accolades that he's
and talk about in a little bit on the other side of the ball, and one of those guys that I had just mentioned is Arkell Smith from the University of Central Missouri. And Arkell is a guy that, obviously, if you know anything about D2 ball, he had a dude throwing him the ball this year in Zach Zabrowski, but you can see the stats on screen. They kind of speak for themselves when it comes to Arkell, and a dude that, like I mentioned earlier, has that kind of pro build already. He was a first-team All-MIAA selection, All-American, like most of these guys on this list. A good frame, could even put a little bit of weight on if he wanted to because he has that capability, but I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on the play style and where teams see him kind of fitting in, because obviously you put on weight, you're going to be sacrificing things in other areas, whether it is speed or something along those lines. Coach Lamberson down there, the head man for the Mules at UCM, he has raved about his leadership, his ability to elevate others. He calls him the quote-unquote ultimate mule. That's what Arkell is to this team, and he has done a lot for this squad. When you look at how he stacks up, he's listed at 6'1", 194, and a dude that has just done everything for the Mules. They played a lot of big-time football games this year against a lot of really physical opponents. You see right there, the dude is just dragging people behind him and then just ditches them with a stiff arm. Now, are you going to be dragging 5 dudes at the next level and stiff arm them off? No, I'm not an idiot, but the fact that he's doing it here means that he can stack up with whoever the hell. It does not matter. This guy has been all over the field for UCM, and he had a great balanced attack. You see a lot of these deep threats, case and point, where, I mean, it's easy to catch a ball when you're wide open, but you see a lot of the deep threats here. Zabrowski's a guy that can obviously sling it down the field, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't a viable option when it came to the short game for the Mules. He was the #1 guy, went up against the best defensive back from each team that they played every single week, breaks a ton of tackles. He's great with the yards after catch category. I'd have to find that stat for you. And for those of you who maybe missed a couple of those stats from the earlier part of the video, we're talking about a guy that has just racked up an incredible amount of numbers here, and I'll try and pull him up while I got the other stuff going on. He had his high of 154 yards. I'm trying to find the season. Here we are, season high. So we're talking about this last year, right, where they made the playoff run, over 1,400 receiving yards on about 100 catches, and he had 18 touchdowns to go with that. That is quite the year for Arkell. It was quite the year for Central Missouri, and although they are missing Arkell and a couple other key pieces, they do have Zach Zabrowski back for another year down there, which is going to be a very exciting team to follow heading into 2024. But we can move over, talk about the next guy on this list, and that's one of our D1R athletes, being Ian Marshall, the man that has certainly... I always got to mute these Twitter videos because they pop up. It always bothers me. He has certainly made a name for himself down at Northern State, and to talk about this guy and just talk about Northern State would probably be a disservice to him. He transferred in from Oklahoma State, which that D1 to D2... not something that's very uncommon, obviously, but for him, it's a little bit different because he's a guy that was actually at 3 other schools before even going to Oklahoma State. So this guy has bounced all around. I think the biggest thing for him was finally just finding a home with the Wolves over in South Dakota, because once he did, his first year with them was absolutely remarkable. We're talking about a guy who came in, NSIC Defensive Player of the Year, first team all-conference, had All-American honors. He led the NSIC in tackles for loss, sacks, and a couple other key categories during the season in 2022. Now, coming into 2023, was dealing with some off-the-field problems, little injury issues, and didn't really have the impact early on in the season that I know he wanted to. Was still a major contributor for this squad, though. I don't want to make it seem like his impact was nullified at all. He is probably the textbook definition of what I would call a disruptor on the defensive line of scrimmage, and that's somebody that, I talk about the sacks category, and this is something talked about with him a lot. He has all these sacks. He's playing, for the most part, interior defensive line. You're playing interior defensive line going up against, I believe it was 80 or 85% double or triple teams in that 2022 season. You have 14 sacks. That's impressive. So he's a guy that can go on the offensive line, or go against the offensive line and hold his ground, especially when it comes to those double teams. This is a very valuable trait to have as a big-time defensive lineman. Now, he has played a good bit of defensive end, and he's listed, depending on where you look at as a defensive end. I don't see him making that jump at the next level, because when you talk about his size, he's listed at 6'1", which, if you know anything about NFL defensive ends, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's highly unlikely at 6'1" that you're going to make that jump and be a defensive end at the next level. But as an interior D lineman, you put on a little bit of weight because you're devoting yourself to that position. Certainly could be a possibility for Ian. And I think that's the biggest question for him moving forward, defensive end or defensive line. And the major knock is his height. But like I've said, he's played both. I would assume he'll make that full-time transition to playing interior, which he's done a majority of it his time at Northern. They don't put him outside, at least that I know of, too much. He's been more of an interior guy. So not like it'll be anything crazy for him. Now, Mike Schmidt, the head coach of the Wolves over there at Northern State, this is what he had to say about Ian and talking about his ability to come in immediately and make an impact. He said, quote, "As soon as he stepped on campus and did his workouts, we knew he was going to be the best defensive player in the league." That's the confidence they have over there in Ian Marshall, and really excited to seeing him continue to work out and show off his stuff and hopefully get a chance here to crack it at the next level. But two more guys for you, one more defense, one more offense. Let's start on the defensive side, and we'll stay in that defensive back spot. And I do realize, trust me, that we talk about a lot of defensive backs on the show, and I think that kind of boils down to two reasons. One, defensive back was them and offensive line, I think, were the highest number of just drafted into athletes in last year's NFL draft, in a position that is always in very high demand. Two, because there's just a lot of talented defensive backs this year. I don't know, sue me. These guys are just really good, and we got to talk about them. But this guy is from a squad that we didn't cover maybe quite as much, and that is Pat Rogers from Central Washington, which is interesting because, of course, if you tuned into any of Central Washington this year or heard their name thrown around at all, you're probably talking about a guy that is named Tanner Volk and looks a little bit different than Pat here, but not to be outshined. Pat Rogers has put together some seriously good play over out west there for the Wildcats. You talk about a guy that's in the D2 Football Elite 100, first-team All-American, first-team Lone Star Conference. He has... Oh, that was an easy grab, wasn't it? He's got a lot of plays that are a little bit more decisive than that one. Has been a great on-man coverage guy for the Wildcats over there. Also blocks kicks and does some things on special teams, which you love to see from guys trying to make that jump to the next level. And what's really in this guy's favor, and I'm going to pull it up here in just a second, his pro day numbers, once you get a look at these, you're going to understand some of the hype about this young man. But just turning on the tape, right there, you see a physical nature you don't often get in a cornerback or even maybe a safety. A dude that is not afraid to lower the shoulder, playing the ball through the air, staying with the receiver. The return game usually pretty decent out of him as well. This guy is very multifaceted in his game. I'm excited to see what he's able to do in getting a shot at the next level, flying across the field, very instinctual guy. But what I talked about with him and what I mentioned earlier are those pro day numbers. Right? Let's take a look at those, and I think that's what really stands out about Pat and his ability to open some eyes at the next level. Here we go. And now these are from the Central Washington Twitter. You can go ahead and check these out, but these are the pro day numbers from Pat Rogers. Let's start it off with the vertical jump. 39.5 inches. We all saw Tavion McCarthy go viral for that 40-some inch jump. Tavion obviously played with him here at Northern. All credit in the world to him. My man Pat is not far behind. This dude got up. That is ridiculous. That is an incredible jump from the man here. How about the 40-yard dash? A 4.51. Certainly respectable. I'm sure he would have loved to see another 4 right there instead of a 5. He's that close. Just a little bit off. Still, with a guy who's built like this, has a good amount of muscle mass, that is not a bad time at all. Something that we talk about it all the time. You just have to be good enough to check a box. He checks a box with that 4.51, absolutely. Broad jump, 10 foot 6 inches. Love to see that. And then I believe they had a couple more down here. How about the 3 cone? Under 7 seconds in the 3 cone is always a great thing. And then the bench press, 12 reps. Again, defensive back, that is all you can ask for. 12 reps from a DB is pretty solid. That's not anything that maybe jumps off the paper, but certainly something to keep an eye on for him. So Pat Rogers is a name that I admit I was not really familiar with going into this process. Let it be known. I'm hip to Pat Rogers now. I'm excited to see where he goes. Let's finish things off with the running back. Save one of the guys I'm most excited about for last, and a dude I was very aware of throughout the duration of the regular season. And actually, I should close it out by giving you the measurements on Pat. I didn't do that. 5'11", 190, so a decent frame on him. Not anything, again, that jumps off the paper, but a dude that you saw the muscle mass on him. This guy's put together. He's built, durable, a guy that doesn't miss games. Those are all things that NFL people really take into high value. They take that. It's very important to them. But let's finish it off with the running back from Hillsdale, Michael Herzog. And this guy, I would assume many of you are familiar with, but maybe not in a very large capacity. I'll cut on the tape and just show you what this guy's all about, because he has been a nightmare for defenses all season long this past year. Herzog is a converted wide receiver, actually, over at Hillsdale. He came in as a wide receiver his freshman year and then was converted after that. Now, where it gets interesting is that was 2019, I believe. Then 2020, you missed the year because of COVID. Now, 2021, coming back ready to play football, he misses the entire spring and the fall with an ACL injury. So now you're talking about missing back-to-back football seasons, and in many case scenarios, some people might either hang it up or, it'd be a very slow process to get them back involved into the game, because as someone who has gone through ACL injuries, that is tough as hell. To come back from that and to have confidence in your leg and confidence in your own ability after a major injury like that, on top of missing a season already because of COVID, right? He comes back, dominates in 2022, and this past year was even better. This dude put up some, ridiculous stats. In 11 games, had over 1,300 yards. He was averaging over 120 per game. He had 21 touchdowns on the year. That's something. He was a Harlan Hill finalist, so he was certainly recognized and had the accolades to go along with some of those numbers. And first-team All-American, a co-GMAC Player of the Year. He's got some experience on the kickoff return, which I'm not sure we may or may not see here on the film. But what's really, kind of takes to the next level with this guy is apparently he's from Windsor. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's okay. But the fact that he's from Windsor means that he's got a much better shot at going to the CFL. And again, if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's fine. The CFL has a quota that they're only allowed to take on, I don't know if quota is the right word, but they're only allowed to take on so many American players to kind of maintain the integrity of the Canadian Football League. Now, for guys like Mike who are from Canada, come play college ball in the States, they obviously don't qualify as an American and thus wouldn't take up one of those spots. So that's actually really big news for him, because he seems to be gearing up for that CFL draft, and he put up some wild numbers at the CFL Combine that we'll take a look at. But before that, the dude went to the College Gridiron Showcase, which is a kind of a smaller school showing. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. But let's look at the numbers from the CFL Combine, because that's where he really showed up and showed out. These are the numbers from Mike on that day. 4.55 40. Again, under a 7-second 3 cone. His vert was a 39-inch, and then shuttle was at a 4.2. So, talking about some really solid numbers. dare I say, like elite numbers, especially coming from the D2 level, like really elite numbers and numbers that are going to put him into a lot of conversations in some big buildings. But the CFL draft is in April 30th. So he's got less than a month now until that CFL draft, and that's where you can probably expect him to hear his name called, hopefully, in that draft. That'd be pretty cool to have a guy come out of D2 and go make an immediate impact in the CFL. But really excited about his game. Had a good Harlan Hill campaign going on a Hillsdale team that, like, let's face it, offense may have been lackluster at times. He was a guy that kept the pace and the tempo up. They struggled at times. Hillsdale was a little bit inconsistent this last year, but I shouldn't say the one, but one of the consistent factors for that Chargers team was Michael Herzog, and he was a dude that really did it all for the Chargers over there. So shout out to all those guys. Once again, anyone else you want me to cover, let me know in the comments, but I feel like we've done a good job of getting to a lot of these players. Finally, though, let's close out the episode. I told you a little bit in the opener. I might have got on the April Fools. Let's take a look at some of the best of the April Fools from today. And Michael Herzog, by the way, 5'9", 200 pounds. So decent build on him. Obviously not the tallest guy in the world, but at a position like running back, doesn't matter. Not as much, at least. Not as much. April Fools. The best from April Fools, at least when it comes to like college football. There were a couple other ones too, like the Duke Blue field, but this is a different field that we'll talk about. This one got me. All right, this one got me good this morning. I woke up. I didn't have my guard up yet. I wasn't thinking about April 1st, thinking about anything else. And Curry Football puts this out. Cats Field is going purple. They've got the alarms going too. That means it's legit. Now, imagine you're me. You wake up. Your guard's not up yet. Read through the right side of this screen. They go through so many reasons about why this is legit, right? Approval from the CCC, their conference, for Curry teams to wear all purple uniforms for home games. You're like, holy shit, really? They talk about the colors that are going to be on it. The rental ease likely to generate revenue. The infill of the cork, soft mulch fragments are environmentally friendly. Lively and vibrant addition to campus and stadium. It's an overall maintenance saving. Offers unique game day atmosphere. Like, they go through all these reasons that are seemingly legit. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. But this might be one of those things we joke about. We circle back around in maybe 2 years' time, and we're like, holy shit, this is really happening. That'd be pretty cool. Curry College, though, they got me. This one was pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty neat one. I think it'd be a really good look for them. I've played on some weird fields. That wouldn't be the worst one. I've seen like bright red. That sucks. I don't think purple would be the worst. The one of the worst I've actually played on, believe it or not, was a light gray field. That was probably the worst I've played on. And like, you might be curious as to why like purple wouldn't even be worse than that. I've played on like Smurf turf field as well. And that light gray, man, you take a hit and you open your eyes to see light gray, and all of a sudden those stars and the little ducks above your head start spinning like twice as fast. I don't even know how to explain it to you guys. Light gray sucks. But this one, well, it's on the Division I side of things, but this one I thought was very well executed. A really cool kind of April Fool's gag here. Coming from Florida Atlantic and South Florida. Where better to host this year's Battle of the Coast than off the coast of the Atlantic? The game versus South Florida will be played in the Atlantic Ocean aboard an aircraft carrier, a first in college football history. Whoever made that graphic needs a raise. Immediately. That thing looks incredible. The aircraft carrier looks like it was made for the gridiron. I don't know where you put the stands. I don't care. There's no field goal post. I'm aware of that. I don't care. That is awesome. If a ball goes overboard, it goes overboard. Right? I thought this was incredible. The graphic looked, here you go, shark food. What happens when the receiver runs too far out of bounds? Shark food. That's great. The replies to these are usually pretty good. But yeah, I thought this was pretty well executed. And talk about like a thing where here's one of the guys on FAU like saying, y'all got me, man. But talk about what we don't see very often, two teams coming together to do an April Fool's deal. Usually it's team specific. This is a great spin on that. I thought that was really cool. And I think what might have had some people, this one didn't get me. I'm not saying that. I'm not admitting that. What might have had some people, a small part of them believing that this could be true, is I believe it's called the Armed Forces Classic. And we'll take a look at it right here. Now, for those of you not aware, they play college basketball games on aircraft carriers. This was a look, Abraham Lincoln, when it became a basketball card. I believe this was just last year or 2 years ago. Michigan State played Gonzaga on this ship. Here it is, the Armed Forces Classic. And this is kind of the look at the transition process, getting the lights set up, the whole court, the bleachers. Here it is, Michigan State, Gonzaga. They have a ton of active duty and veteran service members out there to come see the game. The uniforms are badass, the little digital camo. I mean, this event is so sick. They got a whole ass video board on the aircraft carrier. Also, it was a great game against two of college basketball's best at the time, two blue bloods. But man, this is sweet. Probably one of the coolest venues in college sports history. Imagine being there. Imagine what the tickets cost to be there. Absolutely love that. Obviously, a basketball court is much smaller than a football field, and therefore the logistics of bringing football to an aircraft carrier would not really add up. But the final one was one that also got a pretty good rise in the D2, D3 world. Here is Scott Curry. I, for the record, have no idea who Scott Curry is, but I can appreciate the hell out of what he is doing here. He says, sources are saying Hillsdale and Northwood are seriously considering a move to D3. Northwood expects to apply to the NCAA within the year and will attempt to join the MIAA. Now, for those of you not familiar, Northwood, Hillsdale, two private D2 institutions in Michigan. The MIAA is a D3 league or conference in Michigan, so they're saying Northwood would move down, which actually makes, like, if you didn't know any better, it would make sense. Hillsdale is a couple years out. Big question is if the MIAA would take Hillsdale back, or the OAC. That's the Ohio Athletic Conference, another D3, strong D3 conference. Stay tuned. Now, this gets a little bit of pub. It's got 30 likes, one of them from myself, and like 8 retweets. But again, you have to remember, in small college football world, this shit kicks up storms. And so that's where you get the comment underneath here from Jeff Curtis, the athletic director at Northwood. I'm not sure what your source is or if this is an April Fool's joke. I can assure you that Northwood University has no plans of leaving the NCAA D2 level. We are proud D2 and GMAC members and have zero plans on making any changes. Thank you. At least he ended it cordially. He does admit that it could be an April Fool's joke. He wanted to get out ahead of this thing, and then I believe actually sent out a separate tweet. I would like to dispel any rumors that Northwood University has plans to look at going D3. So, again, y'all might think 30 likes and 8 retweets is nothing. You have to remember that in small college football world and in a day and age where people trust literally any horse shit you throw on the internet, even on a day like today, you kick up a little bit of a storm and get things going over on the old Twitter. But some funny stuff from April Fools. Stay off the internet next year on April 1st. Probably one of the dumbest days to be online. I'm here for it, though. I'm here to cover it. Thank you for tuning in to D1 Rejects. I've been Kobe Manzo. I'll see you next week.